Welcome to the Small Business Breakthrough Podcast, where every week we're interviewing small business guests that support the small business industry. And today we're diving into the challenge of developing workforce talent. Because in every small business, that is a problem. In every business, that can be a major problem, is how to develop programs that teach the people and how to teach your people and develop them in the organizations. In fact, I was actually just at a conference talking about this same subject where people were asking, how do I find talented individuals? And sometimes the best way to find talented individuals is to train them yourselves. And our guest today has been doing this with his newfound company, but he's got 20 years of experience working in and around some of the highest training organizations that we know in the US, which happens to be our military. And so I want to welcome JD Walter, president of Waltric, to the podcast. JD, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jason. It's a pleasure to be here.
JD, let's jump right in. Give us that answer. I talked about workforce development, where you develop programs. You are also teach people how to train, but what's that like in your own words? How does your business solve the problems for the clients?
Yeah, thanks. So we kind of have a life cycle approach. I think the first thing that we want to do in any case is just ensure that we fully understand what the business problem is. So learning and development or training programs need to be implemented to satisfy or to overcome a business challenge, a business problem, or to meet a business need. We don't train for training's sake. There needs to be a definitive end state in mind. We need to have measures, right, to be able to say whether we have or have not met our objectives. So we start kind of with the diagnostic in mind to make sure that we understand the organization. We also want to validate that there is a training solution as part of the answer. Don't want to go in and build a training program for somebody that doesn't need it, right? Like that doesn't help anyone. And what we ultimately want to be able to deliver is something that you stated this kind of on the front end. Retaining talented people is a challenge. And so these programs are not just about making sure that we have the right skills to do our jobs, but we have the competencies necessary to grow inside the organization and become the future leaders to take that organization to, whatever goals it set for itself.
This is not something that I don't run across this very often when I'm talking with guests that help inside of businesses. What inspired you to decide to jump into this type of training?
Well, about when I was leaving active duty, I was in the US Navy. And when I was my last couple of years, I got involved in something that was called the Revolution in Navy Training. The then CNO, Admiral Vern Clark, had decided that the Navy needed to rethink every aspect of the way it trained sailors. Everything from when do we deliver the training? At what point in their career, at what point in an assignment, and then how do we build career paths based on that. That was a giant job task analysis, and it really opened my eyes to this idea that the best way to be successful as an organization is to invest in the people to make sure that they can be the competitive advantage that you need them to be. So over the years, I have looked at building teams, building program, staff, setting up and leading large-scale shared service centers, thinking about the people, the skills that they bring to the table, but what do we need to develop in them so that they can both be successful on the job and the day-to-day, they can contribute to our constant improvement as an organization, and they can realize their own personal objectives for their career. So that in the end, we have great people doing great things that are pushing towards their own career objectives and hopefully setting up that next generation of leaders in the organization.
You talk about training and development for leaders. Do you develop any type of technical training programs that are where somebody needs more of a hands-on type experience with certain machines or certain programs or other parts? Maybe it's even sales training inside of an organization where it's not just leadership specific training.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely, Jason. We can develop any kind of training. So, the one thing I would say is that we don't like to do anything in a vacuum, right? We want to always look at the human element of being an employee. Okay. So you've got individual contributors, you've got that management, supervisory level, you've got the senior executives, those folks, those senior leaders that we look to make the big organizational decisions. Regardless of what level of the organization somebody sits in, we want to make sure they have the technical skill set to do their job, but also those human skills that will allow them to ultimately be successful. Managers, being first time managers, right? That's not an easy job to move into because you're moving from being a technical expert into someone who now has to lead a team of technical experts. There's a tendency, probably in all of us, to kind of hold fast to that technical expertise and want to dive in and continue to do the work. The hardest thing for a manager to learn is that you don't do the work anymore. You now see a team of experts that are doing that work. You're there to provide subject matter expertise, guidance, but you're not there to do the work for them. And I think that's it. If I point to one level of an organization that probably needs the most attention, it's managers. I think we've sort of left them out in the breeze over the last several decades in terms of preparing them to take on this advanced role in an organization. So back to what I was saying, we don't do anything in a vacuum. We want to build the technical expertise, but we want to build those human skills around it so that that technical expertise can actually lead to the peak performance that we're looking for in our individuals.
Let's talk a little bit about. I want to kind of dive into that manager talk because it's so prevalent for business owners, especially small business owners, to promote that rock star salesperson or that rock star backhoe operator to manager, and then they find out that they're flopping.
Mhm.
And what we find is that it may be an aptitude thing where they're just not happy, but really, I think in the conversation here, what probably has happened is that business owner doesn't understand how to train or lead the manager to become a manager that they actually can become because they haven't been through the training themselves. What are your thoughts on that process?
Jason, that makes me think of so I've spent a lot of time around federal contracting, so government contracting companies. So that's a lot of my experience. But I will say that there's this sort of phenomenon, and I'm sure you've talked about this at length, right? It's that founder who gets into that sort of 2 to 3 year window of leading their new business where they really need to think about becoming an executive, becoming a business owner. So they struggle themselves to put that technician hat to the side and adopt this new approach as an executive leading their company. So I think with small businesses, that sort of amplifies itself. As the founder of a company, maybe I'm not ready, or I haven't had the support that I need for me to transition into becoming an executive. And so when I'm picking those folks to promote into those manager roles, I may still have that perspective. I may still be thinking technical expertise trumps everything. I'll give you a quick story. I worked with a company and I love this company. They've been in the business for a couple of decades, and the founder's a wonderful person. But she doesn't select executives well because she still looks for the senior most technicians that she can find. She brings them into the company, but she places them in as an executive, and they're not prepared as individuals to contribute. And in some cases, we find these wonderful people come into the organization, and their observation is, I don't want to be an executive. I'm a thought leader. I want to be the senior subject matter expert. I want to be out here proselytizing on fill in the blank. And so it kind of is multifold, the challenge of moving from technician to manager, seeing others, seeing other technicians and realizing their management, their potential to become a manager, but then putting them in an actual developmental track so that they can realize that competence as a manager and then develop that leadership expertise so that they can continue to grow in the organization.
Hey, real quick, did you know that most small businesses don't actually achieve their breakthrough? And it's not because you don't care. It's all because you're trying to do it alone. That's why I created the Momentum Community, is to help you change that. I want to see you achieve the breakthrough that you've been waiting for. It's where we committed entrepreneurs come and get focused, get accountable, and finally build a business and life that you are meant for. If you want to learn more, click the link in the description below and enjoy the rest of the episode. When you're working with companies that have never done workforce development or any type of training, so they're very green. They know that they're interested. They know they need to do something because they need to be able to develop their talent. What's a little bit about the process that you go through with them to help them understand that your services are really needed, but B, more importantly, of like what their thought process shift has to happen,
Mm-hmm.
how they think about things actually needs to change along with bringing you on board.
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is that I like to remind everybody that I work with, whether you're a formal customer or not, that the only real competitive advantage that we have as businesses are the people that we bring in. Um, we can build cool products, but somebody has to build those cool products. We can offer awesome services, but somebody has to deliver on those. And so people are our competitive advantage. And we're so used to and so willing to spend money, time, and energy investing in all the other stuff. We need to be just as willing to invest in people the same way. So, you invest in a piece of software and the manufacturer releases an upgrade. You're right there, Johnny on the spot, upgrading the system so that your organization has access to the full capacity of the platform. We don't do that with people. There seems to be a lag. So the first thing I want to do is reinforce this idea that people are the competitive advantage, and that investing in them isn't just about making sure they can do the job today. It's, are they able to be a lens for you to look at your organization? Do they have the ability to make observations and then to reflect those observations back so that you're getting that critical intelligence, especially somebody from the sales world, right? We're looking at the numbers. How many are you selling? But what information are they bringing back from the customers? How are we putting that into the cycle so that we can look at this and see trends and say, hey, there's something happening here with the customer? And then how are we arming those salespeople to make adjustments on the fly when the customer's need has matured past the offering? How do we stay relevant to them? And part of that is the salesperson's job. So using sales as an example here, but anybody in the organization is a source of critical intelligence that the organization needs to capture and then reflect upon, and then look to those individuals to be the subject matter experts on what those changes might be. There isn't one engineer. Every organization is a collective of engineers, and they have to work together to continue delivering awesome products, high quality services, but also to be prepared for the future.
Yeah, it's some amazing information inside of the conversation here about how to really develop these programs. What's the future look like for Waltric? Where do you want to take this company, and how do you think how do you want to see it succeed?
Well, I mean, I would love to make lots of money. Isn't that what we all want to do as a business? But I think, but more importantly, we're driven by a philosophy at Waltric, and that is human resilience is the key. If you aren't resilient, then you can't perform at a peak level. It doesn't matter what tools, technologies that we introduce to the system. If our individuals, if our human component of our organizations are not prepared to deal with stress in the moment and withstand the long term strain, wear and tear of stress over time, then they're never going to be able to contribute the way we need them to our organizations to be to realize the objectives that we've set for ourselves as a business owner. So for us, I would love to work with anybody and everybody that wants to uh, revisit their understanding of what training means in an organization and what it actually means to the people that populate that organization. So we believe that emotional intelligence, resilience underpins everything in peak performance. And so what I would love to see is the conversation about EI amplified a thousandfold. I would love to see everybody talking about developing people. We talk about retaining people all the time, and it's the challenge. I'm losing people. We're attriting folks at a massive pace. How do we keep people inside? And then the default is to like, well, what kind of rewards, compensation packages, the standards. We don't talk about, are we developing these people? Is there some human value for being inside this organization? Look, I'm here because I need a paycheck, right? But I don't want to be here just to collect a paycheck. I want to do something meaningful. I want to be around motivated people. I want to have a cool customer set. And we don't have to be saving babies here. We can just be, building cars. It can be cool to build cars, but it has to be more than just a paycheck. And I have to have some advantage as a human being to be inside this organization. So what I would love to sort of proselytize is emotional intelligence is the most critical skill set that any organization needs, and it's needed across all levels within that organization. And then to recognize that as an organization, as a business, if I can invest a little bit of money in my people, the value to them in their lives is it pays for itself in massive dividends. Um, we know we can't eliminate stress in the workplace because you can't eliminate stress out in the world, right? We don't compartmentalize. There's no work life. There's just life. Work happens to be this one thing that we do. If I'm stressed by something that happened at the house, trying to get the dog back inside the house after he ran after a rabbit, trying to contend with traffic, being late for work, or, I'm struggling with money. All of that comes with me to work, and it negatively impacts my ability to perform. And so if we can bolster this sort of resilience, I think across the board, we'd not just have better businesses and better products and better services, happier customers, we'd have a better world.
Totally agree with that. And also on the flip side, they're able to learn that at work and apply it at home. Stressful work and the disconnect that you can go through when you get to the house, taking the
Mhm.
break, making the shift, and then being fully present at home. Makes for, then you get almost 2x the return on the investment for just going through that. It's very, very important when we dive into, as we've dove into that conversation around emotional intelligence and how it is important to train. And I think it'd be even more important today as people are dealing with artificial intelligence,
Mhm.
that training on the emotional side, because there is no emotion inside of the artificial version. So It has been an absolute great conversation. There is lots of
Mhm.
information inside of here on how workforce development can be added to the company and really building people and building the organization with the people and getting some of those training programs is invaluable to retention and continue to develop inside the workforce. Every episode, we have a lightning round towards the end of the episode where I've got 5 or 6 questions that we run through. Are you ready to jump in?
Absolutely.
Quick hitting questions. First ones are pretty easy. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
How about cats or dogs?
Cats.
If you could grab only one weapon or item during a zombie apocalypse, what would it be?
Um, my AR style rifle. Lots of ammo.
Yes, I would be surprised if it wasn't anything, anything else. So the somebody with as much military experience as you have. How about a favorite quote or phrase that we think about that you think about often?
Oh, um, I can't give you the exact quote, but I think of something Nelson Mandela said. It was about his planning violence, and he said, "I don't condone it. I didn't do it willy nilly. I did it deliberately." I think about that because I think about intentionality all the time, and I think about being deliberate when we do something, choose the course of action so we can own it, so we can withstand the consequences of it.
Excellent. How about a book that has influenced your life the most?
I love Execution from Ram Charan and Larry Bossidy.
Okay. And then biggest obstacle that you have had to overcome and one lesson that you have learned from it.
I think it's the resilience thing. I don't think when I came into being a professional, when I left the military, particularly, and joined the corporate world, I don't think I understood resilience in my what it meant for me as an individual. I thought my intelligence would take me to the top. I didn't think I needed to be a good human being or a nice human being. I didn't think about those things. I only thought about being a technical expert. But I realized very early on that that actually can blow up in your face. Doesn't matter how smart you are, doesn't matter how good you are at this particular thing. If you don't have that human skill set, nobody's going to want to work with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with that. And for our listeners out there, if they want to work with you or learn more about your company, how can they do that?
I would say touch base with me through our website. That's www.waltric.com. Just click the Let's Chat button and shoot me a note. I'll reach out to you as fast as humanly possible, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I think you see the link there at the bottom of the screen. Shoot me a note. I'm happy to jump on a call, spend as much time with you as you need. Let's figure out if you've got a challenge, have you diagnosed it correctly, and what are maybe some quick things that we can think about doing to get you on the right track. And we'll get to the sales stuff later. I'm really excited to talk to new folks and kind of hear what their challenges are. And so any way that I can jump in and lend just even an unbiased perspective, I love to do that. So don't hesitate to hit me up.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today, JD. And for the listeners out there, workforce development, developing your team, developing your people is an important part of growing your business. It makes finding people easier, it makes retaining people even better. And it is a critical element that is something to really pay attention to. So reach out to JD to learn more about how you could add those programs to your business. If you found value in this podcast, please leave us a comment. If the and if you would like to get more of these podcasts, click on the playlist located up here in the corner. Until next time.